Welcome to another episode of the Inquisitive Analyst. I'm your host, Marcus Udikang. It's a show, as everyone knows, where we chat about business analysis and project management issues and the challenges and triumphs within those fields. It's inspiring, informative, and very much inquisitive. My guest today is a business analyst, a very well-known business analyst, a business architect, and a scrum master. As a leader, she inspires others to create positive change. She's also founder and host of the Traceability Podcast, which I've been on. So now she's on my show. So please help me welcome to today's show, joining us all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah, Tracie Edwards. Welcome, Tracie.
Thank you, Marcus. It's really great to be here.
Fantastic to have you. Now, I'm quite inspired by you because you've got this beautiful podcast. You've got many well-known business analyst guests on it. And so perhaps I should start by asking how you got started in the business analyst field.
I kind of came in through the back door a little bit. I was working a customer service job for the first company that I was at. They would often offer time off the phones if in exchange you would work some sort of project, and I was only too happy to do that. One of which was testing new versions of software. I knew nothing about tech, but I wanted time off the phone. So, and it actually, the more I did that, the more it presented longer term project opportunities. And, a 3-week project turned into 6 months and turned into full time. And so I was very much mentored in the role of a business analyst and quality analyst, and that's how I got my start.
Fantastic. So did you find that you were approached by your employer, or did you pursue it yourself and ask them, hey, I'd like to take this opportunity?
At the time, it was probably, I had been doing it pretty regularly. They needed someone who I think was reliable and good communication skills and that kind of thing. And so I was referred to that group in the organization. And then, so that's how it all worked out. And I ended up staying. So.
Hey, if everything's worked out, why leave,
Right.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, you are taking a bit of a respite from your podcast, and you've decided to pursue a PhD. So first, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, you're welcome. And maybe you could tell the audience what area of study that you will be taking in PhD, and what was the inspiration to do this?
So I will be studying strategic leadership at Southeastern University in Florida. I went back and got a master's degree from Penn State a few years ago. And kind of in the back of my mind thought, maybe I could do a doctorate one day. Did not find a program right away that sounded interesting. So I kind of thought, well, maybe, that's not my path. And I got into the podcast and that kind of thing. At the same time, I think as a result of having my master's, I started to pursue some other areas within business analysis and Scrum and project management and that kind of thing. And I think, that's sort of what prepared me to find this program and see the opportunity that was there. So it's got a lot of project management, change management, strategic planning as part of it. And that's really where my interest in the profession is these days. And so it seemed like a good match. But it also seemed that it's going to be really, really difficult to try and go to school part-time and work full-time and have a podcast side hustle all at the same time. And as you know, that presents a lot of opportunities as well as challenges. So taking a step back from the podcast to see sort of how my life changes as a result of getting into the doctoral program.
Cool, that'd be nice. Yeah, I have a lot of friends who, well, not a lot, but probably a handful of friends who later on in life decided to go into a PhD, or like myself, doing an MBA. And I think it's a good thing. I think there's several, even if you don't necessarily want to use it for anything, at least in my case, at least it was something that I always wanted to do. It's not going to give me a job at this point, but it's something I really personally wanted to do.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing for you. Congrats.
Thank you. And, I think I am a sort of a non-traditional student, as you are. And I don't know that I could have done this in, the years before, when we did not have online educational opportunities, without having to relocate and uproot our lives and that kind of thing. And so, I think the world and technology has presented us with more opportunities to do things like that now.
So. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100% agree. No doubt. Now, you're not leaving the BA field, you're still in it. So it'd be a great time to ask you some fantastic BA questions if I can.
All right.
And I know that your background is requirements management, or at least you've done a lot in requirements. So I thought I'd pierce your brain for a few requirement questions. So,
okay.
If a BA, so what's a good approach that a BA could use for planning the requirements management process? What's your idea on that?
Well, I have felt for many years that BAs are not brought in soon enough to projects. The projects get signed off before a business analyst is brought in. And so I think as soon as you have an opportunity to be brought into a project as a business analyst, you need to be proactive and start analyzing who your stakeholders are, understanding what the expectations are for the project, and consulting on what you're going to be able to deliver and provide. And so I think you have to go back to the very beginning with your soft skills, with understanding project expectations, analyzing who's going to be providing you what information, and then finding a great place to put it all that will communicate an effective way for the project.
Yeah, I think it's when I got my job at actually my second software company, but the first job that I was really in projects with, and they were always throwing me in the middle of these projects. I just thought this was how it was. And then one day I started a project from scratch. I thought, oh, my heavens, isn't this life? This is how it should be. But you're right, because you get all those things on the table in the beginning. Otherwise, if you're thrown in the middle, you have to find out all these things. You have to find out your stakeholders. Where's the business case or benefits management plan? Where's the charter, if you have one? What are we doing? Where are we going? Why did we go this route?
Right.
And it takes a lot of time trying to fish your way through in the middle of a project.
It definitely does. And I put in a plug for business analysts. I think it's often short-sighted of organizations, and it may have to do with where business analysts live as opposed to where project managers live in the organization. But yeah, certainly a plug for bringing those with analysis skills. And we know that could be many titles these days under the business analyst umbrella. But the sooner they can bring them in, the better. And that's also going to be the person who knows how to effectively keep track of all of the requirements and the source of the requirements and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Definitely managing change, no doubt. Now, what are some of the requirements management tools that say you've used, and why have you chosen to use them?
Well, often it's because of what companies have budgeted for when it comes to requirements tools. In the old days, it was Microsoft Office products. It was Word, it was Excel, it was Microsoft Visio, PowerPoint decks, that kind of thing. The world is changing a little bit. Years ago, there were still requirements management tools, but they were enterprise-wide type things that required thousands of dollars in licensing fees and that kind of thing. And so most organizations just reverted to the Microsoft Office suite and that kind of thing. But these days, there are a lot of open source,
Oh yeah.
free subscription type things that you can share within organizations. And I've used things like Atlassian products,
Okay.
which includes, Jira and Confluence and some of those parts of their suite of products. I've also used a tool called Lucid Chart,
Oh yeah. Cool.
which is, very Visio-esque and that kind of thing. I've also used Google. So Google has a suite of apps that can do Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google Forms, Google presentation slides and such. So there's a variety of tools, a variety that are free within limits, and it's I think sort of incumbent on the analyst to be aware of these products and the pros and cons of them, and work within the scope of their projects to know which ones are going to work for the project team.
Yeah, right. The Google Office definitely works. I should also mention OpenOffice is one that I've used, or LibreOffice is another one that I've used as well. And they have their challenges, but they have their advantages as well.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. GIMP was a free version of kind of like an open source version of Photoshop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not a graphic design person, but there was a job where I had to modify some graphics, and so and the Paint and Microsoft Paint couldn't really do it, so I just downloaded GIMP and got the job done.
Oh, that's great.
So cool. So what's your process for gathering assumptions, constraints, and dependencies for a project?
For me, it really starts with understanding who my stakeholders are, and understanding sort of the high level complexity of the architecture and integration of the systems. So typically right away, I try and figure out who my stakeholders are, do my stakeholder analysis, who's going to be important for me. I look for diagrams that are going to show me what dependencies there are as part of the project. And I think as we do those, they sort of naturally are revealed, especially with the dependencies. As you start scoping things, this is dependent on such and such, and there's your dependency. And I think assumptions sort of fall out if we also have a common terminology. So a dictionary of some kind of terms that this is what we're all talking about. And I think as we do that, that assumptions also sort of fall out naturally. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that common language is always important. And what types of change management process challenges have you encountered, and what are your suggestions for overcoming those?
It all, at least in my experience, it all comes back to communication and how effectively you are communicating change, and when that change is happening. That I run into a lot is just resistance. As I come in asking questions about change and questions about processes, it can sort of get folks a little reticent or a little reserved with why are they asking me this, and that kind of thing. So I think communication and overcoming resistance are generally the things that I run into the most.
Yeah, there's always a bit of resistance to change. Now, what are your recommendations for, say, a successful requirements prioritization process?
So I think there are such things as business cases, and I think you need to almost have a business case for every requirement, and define what the problem is that the requirement is trying to solve. And then you say, well, this is going to save me X amount of time and X amount of dollars. It's all going to come down to efficiency and cost. And then it's a matter of having all of your stakeholders in a room and saying, I've got a requirement for this and a requirement for this. They both can't be a priority one, or that kind of thing. And then you have to break out the numbers, and you have to talk about what it's going to mean technically for the team and that kind of thing. And so all of those requirements end up needing to be negotiated as far as what the priority is. And it can mean that you spend a lot of time on that, but in the end, you end up getting what they want and what is the most effective.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Collaborative working environments. Any recommendations on how to create a more collaborative working environment?
You know, I think it's all about building relationships and rapport with your stakeholders and understanding how to put together an agenda and facilitate a meeting kind of thing. People are busy, and people also want to be understood quickly. And so I think it's a matter of really getting in there with people, building the relationship with them, spending time with them, letting them see you and you see them. And I've run into times where stakeholders would rather that I just do everything and sort of infer their requirements. That's not very effective. And so you have to overcome some of that resistance, and that goes back to having that rapport and the trust that stakeholders have in you. So
yeah, and I think that even to have that collaborative working environment, whether you're doing a PhD or whether you're a BA, for example, I think those skills always come in handy, no doubt, because they say the most difficult part of the project is people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I was trained years ago in the concept of building relationships of trust. And there are things that you do, whether in business or outside of business, where you build that collaboration and rapport through building relationships of trust. And so, yeah, you have to get in there and get dirty with people. And
that's great. Now, just to use a word from your podcast, traceability, what's your best plan for requirements traceability in a project?
So each task and each story, each test needs to map back to a requirement. And I will, if I've got a requirements document, then I link it to test cases and I link it to stories and tasks. And if I don't have a requirements document, I've got sort of an overall plan or roadmap for what needs to be completed. And every time I'm putting together a test case or I'm putting together a task or story, I'm saying it maps to this requirement. Kind of in a case of tickets and tasks, you're putting it back to a requirements document and putting all the links and all the communication in there. So
fantastic. Difficult stakeholders. We're talking about communication. Yeah, we always have difficult stakeholders. How do you deal with those difficult stakeholders who do not easily adapt to change?
Yeah, that's always a challenge, no matter the project and no matter the environment that you're in. I think it's about overcoming the resistance and helping people feel understood. So, for example, I was on a project where we started asking questions about process and requirements of a stakeholder, and she was very threatened by that. Well, it came out that she alone had been doing this particular task for however many years she had been doing it, and she had this emotional buy-in to the task and her job, and she was worried that it was going to make her redundant. Understand what the difficulty is for them, that this can be a good thing and it can be a win for them. So sort of the concept of with them, what's in it for them or what's in it for me kind of thing. So
I think that's important. If everyone understands they're going to win something or get something from it, then that adaptability to change becomes so much easier, at least in many cases, not all, but a lot of cases it does. Yeah, that's fantastic. Great. even though you're doing your PhD, are you
Mhm.
still open to being contacted by the business analysis community? And if so, how can we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Always open to connections and however I can help support other business analysts. They can find me on LinkedIn or they can email me at tracie@traceabilitypodcast.com. Remember that my name is spelled a bit differently. So it's Tracie
Mm.
Edwards or Tracie@traceabilitypodcast.com. And they can get hold of me there. I'm always eager to visit with folks. And
Well, thank you very much, Tracie, for being on the show. It's been absolutely wonderful having you.
it's so fun to connect with you again. And thanks for your patience as we were working through some of the technology challenges. But
It happens.
yeah,
It happens.
all the best to you, Marcus. I really enjoy our connection. So thanks.
Thanks. Yeah. And good luck with you on your PhD. All the best. And now a word from our sponsors. The Lewis Institute provides an enterprise project management program that does more than just train PMs. It helps support them from the CEO level on down. These courses help certify project leaders and prepare them to pass the PMP exam. The Business Agility Institute provides Emergence, the Journal of Business Agility. This quarterly publication brings you inspiring stories from the most innovative companies. Use the promo code Analyst to get a 10% discount on your annual subscription.